Hello YouTube friends, it's Sunday the 15th of March, something like that, and I thought I'd come and just have a wee chat with you while I sit here and do a bit of knitting. So this week's been quite a lot about knitting, in fact. So let me finish this row and I'll show you what I'm making. I've got some lovely cotton yarn. Let me tell you what it is. It's organic rainbow cotton. It's quite thin and I've got it in some nice colours. One more. And then this green one that I've just picked up here, started with. And do you know, all I'm making is dishcloths. Reusable, rewashable dishcloths, cotton dishcloths, the kind of thing your grandma used to make, and we all of us had dishcloths before there was throwaway disposable ones, and so they're a good idea, a sustainable thing to have, and they're also the easiest thing in the world to knit. I don't even need to look at them hardly. And so when I'm sitting of an evening watching a bit of telly, if I haven't got any knitting on the go, then I can just pick this up and do this. There's not even a pattern to tell you, but I'll tell you how it is I knit this. I cast on one stitch, and then at the beginning of every row, I increase one stitch. And basically when I say increase, I knit into the front and the back of the first stitch. Knit that row, and then when you turn it round, it's all garter stitch. I do the same at this end here, so that on every row, really, you're increasing one stitch, which means that, I've done this hundreds of times, you get a really nice square. And it also means you don't have to remember which row you're on, because every row you're on, you're increasing one stitch. So I'm just going to keep making these, and the way that I might do it, because the balls are quite small, so I'll just keep knitting, and then what I'll do is I'll weigh this and I'll weigh this, and until they with a needle on this one and a needle on this one, and then when they're even, then I'll start decreasing, unless it gets to a size that I think's big enough, and then I'll start decreasing. But if I want to use the whole ball, that's one way that I can do that. So that's sort of really brainless knitting. It's just so that my hands are busy. So which colour do you like? I've got 7 colours, rainbow, 7 colours. So I've got the green that we've started here, and then those other ones there. Now the green and pink, of course I like. And it might be that I do a stripy one with purple and purple, that might work. And then there's a pale green here, or even a yellow. So I don't know. I've got enough to play with and make a few dishcloths just for me, for Martha and Adam and John and Anna and Owen and Rita. If they want a reusable dishcloth, they can have them. But there has been quite a bit of knitting going on in the past few days. It's not bad weather today, Sunday the 15th, but yesterday was horrible, raining, horrible, really vile weather. So I made these for little baby Agnes, little alpaca socks for her. These are in the next size up because she's growing now, obviously. And this is a pattern, I have it here, by Pearl Soho. It's a little download, you have to pay for it, but it's a nice little sock. It's very easy to make. I've got the pattern in my head now, and you can make it up to what's the size? Up to a year old, from newborn to a year old. So this is like the 6-month size, because Agnes is now 5 months, but still little. So I made those for Agnes, finished those this morning. And then I think I might have shown you this wool that I was knitting into rainbow socks, and I finished those now as well. And so the rainbow socks are done. And for these ones, I use a pattern which came with the very first ball of wool, sock yarn I ever bought. There was a pattern that was the simple sock pattern, it's called, and it really is the easiest, simplest pattern ever. And so those are the rainbow socks there. Sort of, yeah. if I've got a problem with it, it's this bit here, which doesn't go in a gradated way, but that's because you have to turn the heel. So in turning the heel, you lose a lot of yarn here, and then by the time you pick the toe of the sock up again, the foot of the sock, you've broken that grade there. So because they both look the same, it looks like they're supposed to be that way. So those are finished now. I found a lovely, lovely YouTube tutorial on grafting the toe. It's a nice, let's have a look at this one. They both look really, I like them a lot, but they look pretty invisible, those that toe graft there. Maybe I'll leave a link to that one because it's slightly different from every other Kitchen and Stitch I've ever done. This lady who I'll leave a link to her because she helps you to graft the toe of the sock without the little dog ears at the end. Sometimes you get, when you graft, you sock knitters, you get a little dog ear, she calls it. Well, this is a way of doing that, which is nice and smooth. You don't get any dog ears. Now, these are top-down socks, because that's what this pattern is, top-down socks. It's all I ever knit, you know. I've never knit a toe-up sock. And I knit them on 4 needles, and they're not hard. And I like to have a nice long leg on my socks. But as I say, these aren't for me. So those are finished. Those are finished for Agnes. Now, Agnes and Martha came to see me on Wednesday. And I won't be able to show you what's on the table at the moment because it's covered over with a big cloth to stop the cats from sleeping on it, because it is, in fact, it's the Trip Around the World yellow quilt. And I've covered it over with another cloth so that if I can't stop the cats from coming in, I don't know where cats are actually. We're cat free, aren't we? But I can stop them by putting this cloth on top. But I'll put some film in here of because Martha and Agnes came to see me, and I was just at the point of laying out the 3 layers: the quilt sandwich, the backing, the wadding, and the top, because it's finished now. To that stage, it's really handy to have an extra pair of hands. And although Martha was only one hand, we managed to lay it out and pin it out. Yesterday, when I was, in between knitting socks and grafting toes, I made the label for the back of this quilt. Now, when Martha came, we made a long video, the longest video I've ever made actually. And over on Patreon, there's a lot of film of Martha and I laying out this yellow quilt and Agnes helping. The back of the quilt then is all this yellow here, and I explain in the longest detail why it's called Bring Me Sunshine. Now, I'm not an embroiderer. This will be the label on the back of the quilt. I just sort of very amateurishly sort of stab away at the fabric. I've got these little bits of green fabric here, and because the writing's green, I had an idea that I might sort of bind the panel in green so that it doesn't get lost when I put it on the back of the yellow quilt, because the back of the quilt is this amazing yellow colour. I'm going to quilt it, hand quilt it. Sometimes when I hand quilt, I use every different colour under the sun of Aurifil thread, because I've got many, many colours. But sometimes I use the same colour. So I tell you what I can do now, because both the people who've got the January quilt commission and the February quilt commission have both got them. So what I'll do here is I'll put in the pictures of those quilts in those people's houses. One's in France and one's in Australia. And they've arrived now, and the people have got them and they like them. With the first one, I quilted it with every single colour of red and yellow and orange. With the second one, I quilted it all in grey, because that's what the fabric seemed to want me to do. Beautiful grey K-facette fabric. With this one, the Bring Me Sunshine quilt, it's all going to be quilted in yellow, so that the yellow of the backing fabric and the yellow of the quilting, we'll see how that looks, because I've had to order the thread. I didn't have enough, and I don't want to start it until I've got all the thread, because it'll just be something that I do over 2 or 3 days, and it would be nice not to run out of thread. So that's on order. It's on its way. Those quilts are now with their people. There's some more commission quilts coming, but not quite yet. I'll be working on those soon, so the board will soon be full of those different colours that are going on. But for now, I'm knitting stuff I don't need to knit because it's nice to do that. And I'm stitching on a quilt that hasn't got a home. So what am I doing? And I'm knitting dishcloths for my family so that they can choose what colour they would like. I don't think any of my kids watch these videos, but if you do, you can choose from any of these colours. So the shop then, I think it was last week I was making the Coptic bound books. Well, all the larger size ones have all sold now, and there are still a few of this size one left behind. These are the small Coptic bound notebooks. Let me find you that. I like that one. I like that one with the bird heads on it, and this one's got a bald eagle on the back as well. So there are a few of these still in the shop. And one of my kids said to me, "But Mum, they're too small. What would people use them for?" So I'll explain what I use my one for. My one's from the previous batch that I made. This is sort of like I hesitate to call it this because it sounds a little bit sort of airy-fairy, but this is my gratitude book. And a few years ago, someone told me that they had this practice of writing down at the end of the day 5 things they were grateful for. Not in great detail, just like, the sunshine, the sound of the curlew, the beautiful snowdrops in the garden, the fact that the bees have made it through the winter, Agnes coming to visit. Things I'm grateful for, because sometimes, and especially at the moment, and this is a coronavirus-free zone, I'd just like to say. And anybody who's sitting on the virtual sofa here, and you're all very, very welcome, it's a virus-free zone on the sofa too. So you're all going to be fine. Because I think there's a lot being spoken globally now about what's going on here. And I'm not going to add to that at all. I mean, I've been talking to my family, and I was talking to my brother this morning about our dad, and I think that the hysteria that's gripping the nation and the world, we need some sort of perspective on that. So I'm going to carry on tying knots in my willow and being joyful about the small things that are going on in our lives. Small things. They're really tiny things that you might never even notice, Remembering that I had this thread, this cotton thread. I'd forgotten. I'd finished the socks. And I thought, now what am I going to knit? Then I remembered I had this. I thought, oh, great. I've got some more knitting I can be getting on with and doing. It's about a bit of gratitude. Knitting, what I would say about the knitting is, if you're on the virtual sofa and you're knitting, can you make sure you just have short needles so that you're not poking the virtual person next to you? For double-ended needles is perfect because they're very short. Yeah, troubling times. And so what I would say is be sensible. You don't need any more toilet paper this week than you needed last week. And so, leave some in the shops for other people, because it's, I think it's crazy how we suddenly think that we're going to need all these things. Yeah, there's a load more to it than that. But as I say, this is a coronavirus-free zone. It is. I was at the printers this week. I was picking up the new compliments cards for anybody who ever buys anything in the shop. If you buy anything in the shop, you might get you will get a little card in there, one of these little cards that I've made, which are the some photographs from round and about the last homely house with just the contact details on the back. Now, 2 things. I was running out of these. I haven't got very many of these left. Also, the contact details on the back have changed. And so I thought, well, before I print a new batch, it's an opportunity, isn't it, to redesign them a little bit. So that's what we've done. I've taken my inspiration for my new compliments cards, which I absolutely love. I mean, I liked these, but the new ones, fantastic. Now, over on Patreon, if you are at whatever level you're at, if you're at one particular level, you would receive this thing called Stories from the Last Homely House Kitchen, which is exactly what it says on the tin. And this replaces the handmade postcard that I was making last year. And these are stories or thoughts or whatever's going on in my kitchen. So this is March, and January was all about soup. February was all about Pancake Day. And there was a story in there about Pancake Day from when I was in my 20s. And this one, Stories in the Last Homely House Kitchen, Martha came, because Martha does all the illustrations, my daughter, and drew all these beautiful illustrations for this particular stories. Now, I had the originals of the pictures, and I absolutely loved them. I loved them. So I took them to the printers, and the compliments cards are bigger now. We've got the web details on the bottom there, wherever. There, but the new cards are taken from the illustrations that Martha did for the Stories from the Last Homely House Kitchen for the March edition of that thing. And here they are. And so there's this one here, which is my shelves, this one, which is my wonderful stove, this one, which is my kitchen window, and then a lovely bunch of tulips. No, not tulips, daffodils. And on the back here is the website details, but also a little bit about what's on each of the cards. So if you buy anything from the shop, I mean, I have to say, I'm going to use these up first, guys. There's not many, look, there's not many left. Once those have gone, then these will come online. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write your little message of thanks on the back of these, and they'll start to be in use in a few weeks' time. Couldn't be more pleased with these. I really, really like working with the printers down in Hexham. They're such friendly people, and also very imaginative. So so there's the kitchen, and the printers print this, which is the other thing that the patrons can get. So there's it's a monthly magazine, it's a little zine, indigo, tangerine, those were January and February, and this month's is pink, and it has more pages in, because Rita and I decided that we like doing it, so we should put some more pages in. And Rita lays it all out and makes it look fantastic. Owen does any photoshopping that needs doing to any of the pictures. Anna takes some of the pictures, and I write all the words. And it's a very collaborative effort. And then Adam, Martha's bloke Adam, he lays out the stories, and we theme the writing for that in with the colour of this. All very clever. So yeah, that was how we do that. So the stories then, the pictures that are on the March one are my new thank you cards, which I couldn't be more pleased with. That was a visit to the printers. It was good. There have been a lot of problems with my electricity, which is so boring. I can barely bring myself to tell you about it, but it is not resolved. The farm where I live, I'm here in this little cottage, but every other building at the moment is unoccupied for various reasons. People have moved away. They're doing a lot of renovation work. So it's only me living here. And so they've taken this chance to do a huge amount of major work to the electrics. Well, that seems to be disrupting my electric supply somewhat. And so I've had a lot of problems with my electricity, which is a nuisance. It's fine at the moment, touch wood, but it's going to be a big problem again tomorrow, because they're going to come and resolve it all tomorrow. So it just makes you think, doesn't it, how much we rely on things like, the water to be running properly and the electricity. And somebody over on Patreon, because I was telling them about it, and she said, wouldn't it be great to have solar panels? And yeah, it would. Or wind generation, or ground source heat, or rainwater collection, all those really lovely sustainable things. Wouldn't it be great? It would actually. It would be lovely. But I haven't got any of those. I rely very much on mainstream, on-grid things. And it's all fine when it works, but not so great when it doesn't. So this next week coming up then, if there's some nice weather, I'm hoping to get back out in the garden again. Did you enjoy that last garden video that Anna made? Now, Anna's behind everything to do with the garden vlogs. She's filming them, she's editing them, she's choosing all the music, she's doing all of that. I just turn up and do exactly what she tells me to do. You know, we're going to make a great series out of this because there's so many things to do in the garden. I mean, a huge amount of things to do in the garden. So I've got to work out what it is I'm going to grow. It's far too early to be thinking about growing anything in March, but I can already imagine the courgettes and the lettuce and the cucumbers and the tomatoes. We're going for all of those things, and maybe some nice flowers too. So in my gratitude journal today, you know, one word, that's all it needs to be on each page. And you can date it if you want to, or you don't need to. It's up to you, do what you like. So today what I'm grateful for is my son John, because I was just doing the dishes and sort of messing about, pottering around, doing the things you do, and John turned up. And we had a cup of tea and a really, really good chat. And John and I are thinking about some of the wildlife things that we might do in the garden as the year unfolds. And I'm excited about that because he's a massive bird watcher and a real naturalist. And so we might do some wildlife things together, he and I, outside, which I think will be lovely. So guys, I'm going to look about editing that. But what I will say is, I never say it, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed and you would like never to miss a notification about when I post again, subscribe and ring the little bell for the notifications. I've said that. Leave me a comment. I read them all. I sometimes try and reply to them too when I have the time. And share this video. And if you want more content over on Patreon, there'll be the live stream coming up at the end of the month for that tier. And then there's I post a video every week for the patrons. And this week it was the longest video I've ever made in my life. And it was Agnes being completely and utterly adorable on this quilt, which meant that we didn't really get much work done. But Martha came and she was very happy for me to film Agnes for the patrons. So that was nice. So that was good. Yeah, whatever's happening for you with this world pandemic, I'd say let's get some perspective on this. Take care, of course. Do all the precautionary things that that we're being advised to do, the least of which is, you know, wash your hands properly. We can do some fun things without being too worried about being overwhelmed and consumed by the news that's coming at us every day. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you soon. Bye now.